Let's Ruin Dad's Day, otherwise known as Coming Unglued, is a 1999, or 1998 depending on which source you decide to trust, made-for-TV movie, though we're unclear which channel this aired on, directed by Fred Gerber and written by Arne Olsen. Gerber's history with film is a rocky one to say the least, and while he does have some pretty decent credits for his work in television, including The X-Files, The Relic Hunter and A Town Called Eureka, his film credits extend no further than a couple of very obscure Leslie Nielsen films. Arne's biggest credit, by contrast, is notably that he wrote the screenplay for the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, and he wrote the sequel to All Dogs Go to Heaven. But that's about it in terms of his notoriety. I have to assume that Let's Ruin Dad's Day was a film used to try and help children overcome anxiety that comes with divorce. And while I appreciate that it's something that quite a few kids worry about growing up, and it's quite a good idea to try and reassure kids that just because their parents argue every now and again, that doesn't mean every argument will be the last, how this film handles the topic is absolutely shocking. And the message gets heavily watered down by the fact that it desperately wants to be Home Alone 2, nearly 7 years after Home Alone 2 came out. It even goes as far as to nick some of the toys used in Home Alone 2, with a knockoff Talk Boy getting used absolutely to death. Our film follows Jason and Selena, two charismatic young tykes, who are just your average run-of-the-mill local neighbourhood school kids. Jason gives a report on divorce in his school as part of a project, and that night he thinks about his own parents and how their marriage lines up with the warning signs of an imminent divorce. Later on he then overhears his parents arguing because his dad, played by Judge Reinhold, has been offered a job interview in Chicago, meaning the whole family would have to move over there, and Jason's mum is not happy about it. Convinced that his dad will take the job and the marriage will break up, Jason attempts to sabotage his father's trip to Chicago with the help of his sister Selena, with hilarious consequences. Probably the first major issue that jumped right at me in this film was the soundtrack, which is the single most irritating, annoying, god-awful, repetitive, nails on a chalkboard, farting cacophony I have ever had my misfortune to sit through. This film wants you to know it's a funny comedy. It's a kids' film, funny comedy. And after the opening titles alone, it had me wishing for death's sweet release. The second major issue with this film is the script. From a plot perspective, this film is just a generic and boring retread of the same ground that films like Home Alone did in the 90s and that Ferris Bueller did in the 80s. It's tried and it's very dull. But what really kills this script for me is the dialogue, which is just absolutely awful. No child would speak the way this script is written. No adult would behave in any way like how this script portrays. The dialogue is written for actors about 5 years older than the main cast, and this leads me to a major issue where I can't tell whether the performances are bad because of the dialogue or whether the dialogue is just exacerbating a terrible performance from the cast. There isn't one genuinely likeable character in this film. Not one. All of them come across as quipping idiots or obnoxious beyond any natural tolerance. Judge Reinhold as the dad is the closest we come to a likeable character, and even he doesn't exactly endear himself to the audience, as the film needs to play him out as a little bit selfish in order to make the kid's reasons to mess with his trip justified. Notably bad characters in this include our main cast member Jason, who's a border psychopath and clearly has abandonment issues. This kid shows clear signs of needing to be in care, genuinely. Marty, who's my least favourite character in this entire film, whose very presence in any scene was so hyperactive and irritating, it made me reach for the vodka, literally. And Lacey, a punk rocker in her early 20s who's the lead singer of her own band and is apparently well past it, who gurns and chews her way through each scene she's in with the destructive force of a wrecking ball. This film also falls into every single bad comedy trope you could possibly present an audience with. From unfunny, oh look he hit his head, slapstick moments, right the way through to absolutely dire, mum thinks she's a brilliant chef but she can't cook to save her life, shtick. Not only that, but the script isn't even consistent with characters, completely U-turning at random on how they're established. The two moments that spring to my mind are Selena, the 13-year-old girl who flicks wildly in the first half between generic angry sister and PG-13 whore, and then in the second half becomes a mature, good-natured voice of reason. And again, Marty, who for 80% of the film is an insufferable Quagmire-esque chattering idiot, and for 15% of the film randomly turns into a calm and measured responsible adult and parental figure. There's even some traits that literally only appear for one scene, like Jason becoming a tech expert. It happens for this one scene, and then it's never raised or mentioned ever again. They even handle the messages of this film badly. There's a subplot about Selena dating a boy online who she's never met in real life, and she's doing this against the wishes of her parents. Now, apart from the fact that they do that awful thing that all bad mid to late 90s films did in making the internet look like this sort of parallel universe, they had the opportunity to really show kids the danger of talking to strangers online here. You never see Selena's mystery man until the very end of the film. And what would have been a good lesson to show would have been for a date to not be who he said he was. Obviously not putting her in any major danger, but sending the message to kids that if you don't know who someone is or you haven't met them before in real life, be very careful who you're talking to because they may be lying. Nope, this film forgets about that plot line around a third of the way in and then hastily writes an unfunny comedy resolution that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. They also advocate getting a ride with strangers, but only if you really need to, which left my jaw firmly on the floor. The resolution regarding the divorce, the main plot line, resolves in an awful way as well, with Jason's mum effectively conceding to her husband without any kind of stipulation, when she genuinely made quite a reasonable case for staying where they were at the beginning of the film. It effectively teaches the audience that if you want something to happen, hold your breath long enough and stamp your feet, and eventually people will give you what you want. This film has one funny joke. One. Here it is.
I don't have a barf bag.
Here, take mine.
Thanks.
Here, take mine.
I've just saved you an hour and a half's time watching this film. No need to thank me. And here's the worst joke of the film.
4 seasons, huh? Get out! You got it. Suddenly have the strangest urge to say punk rules.
Which actually hurt my soul. I know I've been picking on this script and the plot for the majority of this review, but this is the bread and butter of this film. If you don't have good dialogue or in any way a decent script, you're setting yourself up for an immediate fall out of the gate. This is supposed to be a light-hearted kids film, but it goes way too often into uncomfortable and even downright creepy territory. There's a scene where Jason questions how much intimacy his parents are having. That's his words, not mine. There's this whole online boyfriend thing which is hanging over this film like a storm cloud, and it's equally as creepy as it seems. There's a scene where Jason sends his father and Marty to a party where they're mistaken for strippers, which is entirely inappropriate for a kids' film. The Yakuza make an appearance briefly in this film. The Yakuza! The biggest chip on my shoulder about this film is that about halfway through, Selena just flat out says to Jason, "You know, all this stuff you're doing isn't going to stop them getting divorced. They'll get divorced if they want to. Because if it happens, and nothing will change that." There's a pause, and then she keeps on helping him ruin his dad's day. Why? She made it perfectly clear she knows how this will work, so what? She's just doing this to screw with her dad? That's awful. I'll get this out of the way out of obligation. The direction is as passable as I can describe it without being praiseworthy. They put the actors the right way round, and I think they may have let them have some say on how they're framed because they choose to sit and move in interesting ways that no human ever would. As for the cinematography, well, the lens cap's off. It's pointing in the right direction most of the time. That's all I really have to say. No thought, no variety, bland, uninspired. The editing is very generic as well. Minimal cuts. It looks like they've done that wacky thing of cranking the saturation right up just to make it look light-hearted and fun. It doesn't work. Let's Ruin Dad's Day was released by Prism Leisure in the UK in either 2001 or 2002, depending on which sources you trust. The film is a clean transfer with little to no issues and sadly looks great. I should point out that my copy of the film has begun to fall to that silent killer disc rot, and as a result the last 5 minutes of my DVD wouldn't play, so I had to pick up the ending via a YouTube uploaded copy. But I am debating whether it is disc rot that caused my player to stutter, or whether by the end of the film my player had just suffered enough. This film has no point, no purpose, no reason to be. I feel like a poorer man having watched this. My soul is that little bit colder now. If you were a kid when this film came out and you enjoyed it, and you continue to enjoy it to this day, I'd love to hear from you. Because I think there may be some government agents out there that want to develop a new coping technique for spies under interrogation. The only benefit I can take from this film is knowing that when I wake up at 7 AM on a god-awful rainy Wednesday and I have to go to my job and sit there in bed thinking to myself, is there any reason to actually keep going on? Should I just lie here all day until I can work up the volition to step out of my house long enough to find a bus to end my suffering? I'll know that this wave of sorrow will pass very quickly because I'll realise, well, I'll never have to watch Let's Ruin Dad's Day again. You know what? The world's probably a little bit of a brighter place as a result of that.